Fellow members of the African race, greetings. My name is Shaka Barak. I'm the president of the Marcus Garvey Institute. What I want to talk to you about today is the wrongful conviction of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey in 1923 as related to the Black Star Line and why his son, Dr. Julius Winston Garvey, is calling for President Barack Obama to grant Marcus Garvey a presidential pardon posthumously because Marcus Garvey was innocent. Brothers and sisters, we need to understand that the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, one of the greatest leaders that we ever had, that gave us the first and largest mass movement, called us together from 40 different countries, set us down for the whole month of August to discuss the needs of the African world. And because the need also addressed the economics of the people, he launched the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation to go along with the grocery stores and the restaurants and the newspaper that put the word out. Africa for the Africans, those in home and those abroad. We never had a leader like the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So leadership, as he understood it, meant pain, blood, and death. When you really go out there to serve the masses of your people, you must pay a price. And so the Honorable Marcus Garvey was persecuted because he loved his people. He was framed. He was indicted. He was arrested. He was tried by a judge and a jury that was white. He was convicted. He was sentenced and went to prison for his people. But truth crushed the earth will rise again. We need your help, our brothers and sisters, to help us get a pardon for this man, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, from our black president, Barack Obama. Let me just show you a picture of him. We have his picture here as well. Now, in calling for a pardon, there are things that we want to point out to our viewing audience so that we can expose the role of the United States government officials, the Bureau of Investigation, later called the FBI, that all-white jury, that judge, and the district attorney and the prosecutor, and how they played a role in a conspiracy to defeat the world's greatest leader and one of the world's greatest organizations that he founded, the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. Furthermore, there are some well-known African Americans, so-called black organizations and businesses that will also be exposed for assisting in the attack on Marcus Garvey and his organization. So you will learn a few of the facts that I'll lay out before you. And while there are people who claim to be black nationalists and Pan-Africanists and pump their chests about how proud they are, brothers and sisters, far too few have studied the life and the works of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. This man is the perfect example of a leader. So we are going to take you back into time so that we can look at the things that happened around his wrongful conviction. Marcus Garvey was charged with, on about December the 13th, 1920, a certain letter was addressed to Benny Danzey in New York with the intent, allegedly, of defrauding. Not only was Marcus Garvey wrongfully convicted, to which he had pleaded not guilty, of course. At that time, he was 35 years of age, and he had never did a crime in his life. He was convicted of using the mails to defraud the members of the UNIA and ACL and was sentenced to 5 years, fined $1,000 in order to pay the cost of the court, which was about $5,000. Not only was the punishment the severest, but the cost of the court is not provided for as a penalty in the particular law supposed to have been violated. The government witnesses, under pressure or cross-examination, admitted that they were told to lie. The attorney, so-called, of the other so-called conspirators because it was four. This was a business, the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation. There were four. But the prosecutor made no attempt to get anybody but the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. The learned judge, Julian Mack, heard witnesses give false testimony. And not only did they give false testimony, but when they were cross-examined, they didn't even want to answer. Honorable Marcus Garvey had to plead to the court. Would you get the person to at least answer the question? And it kept proving over and over again that these were liars that were put on the stand. And the judge, what did he do? Every time the Honorable Marcus Garvey made a motion or made a plea, the judge was like, overruled, overruled, overruled. In other words, he wasn't making any attempt to get at justice, to get at honesty. So the trial was not fair. In fact, the judge was an active supporter of the NAACP, which was a rival organization to the UNIA, and therefore allowed the supporters of the NAACP and enemies of the Honorable Marcus Garvey and rivals. They came in the courtroom. They filled the courtroom. The marshal allowed them in. But anybody that was sympathetic toward the Honorable Marcus Garvey, any friends and members of the UNIA, they were kept out of the courtroom. Judge Julian Mack was a special guest at an event honoring W.E.B. Du Bois, an enemy of Marcus Garvey. And this occurred soon after the trial. They got together. Celebrate that they got Marcus Garvey. It was an agent, Amos, a former bodyguard for President Roosevelt. This man was going door to door, asking people to hate Marcus Garvey, to say it in short, and would parade himself around in the courtroom, threatening and intimidating people if they acted like they were in support of Marcus Garvey. On and on, these occurrences occurred in this courtroom. They were bringing witnesses like this assistant district attorney, Leo Healy. He worked for the Harris, McGill and Company that sold the Black Star Line its first ship for $165,000, who testified that he knew the ship wasn't worth $100,000, but he was mad that Marcus Garvey would not give him a kickback to fleece the masses. He had just had lunch with the prosecutor before he testified. Marcus Garvey was persecuted in the courtroom. There were many attempts to ridicule him. Sarcasm was used, unkindly reprimands and remarks from the prosecutor and the judge. To Marcus Garvey, he would say things like, "I'm not conducting law school." But with every mistake the prosecutor would make, he would be most painstaking in the effort to deceive the court, to help the prosecutor deceive the court. So these were the conditions that the Honorable Marcus Garvey was tried in. And we want you to know more and more about what happened to our great leader, teacher, and guide, so that you understand why we must call for a pardon. Basically, we're asking for a pardon because he was innocent. Many of you think that Marcus Garvey did a crime, and because of that, you don't go towards him like you should. You don't study his life and works like you should. You don't teach your children about him like you should. You don't build the institution to honor him like you should because you think he did a crime. But as we go through this pardon process, more and more of you will become aware that he did not commit a crime. His only crime was to love his race and to try to get us to have self-reliance and to be an independent people. We won't be able to cover everything in one video, so we're going to do this in 4 parts. You have now seen part 2. Get ready for part 3. But stay with us until the end so that you get everything that you need to understand that Marcus Garvey was not a criminal. And you can go and sign this petition at Justice for number 4 Garvey at gmail.org. I'll repeat, justice for Garvey at gmail.org. Stay tuned for more information. Thank you.